Guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we are going to be making a creepy Wendigo. Now there are a lot of different rumors or myths about how Wendigos came to be. From what I understand, they are people who have started eating other people, cannibalism, and have eventually turned into a Wendigo, a creature doomed to walk the forest, tearing apart any poor soul that happens to come across it. And that is what we are going to be making today. Lovely. To start our Wendigo, I always like to sculpt the head and feet first. As you saw earlier in the video, I was pulling up references on my phone. References are very key when sculpting anything. I don't care how good you think you are, I don't care how many years you've been doing it, you will always need references. You will always find something new or learn something from looking at pictures of whatever you're trying to create at multiple different angles. Now, I'm not really good at sculpting skulls in the first place, so you best believe I took out as many references as I could. But I'm trying to go for a deer, maybe goat. If I can get anywhere in between those two, I'll be happy, but that's the look I was trying to go for. So references are always going to help make sure everything's in the right places, make sure you're building up where you're supposed to be, taking away where you're supposed to be. So if there's the one thing I can teach you, it's references. References, people. So to start out, I like to squish down a ball of tinfoil into the rough head shape that I'm going for. And then I like to wrap one layer of clay around this. I used the tinfoil for a few reasons. The first being that it's going to save me clay. Say I didn't use the tinfoil and I just used all clay for this, the head is going to be very heavy, and that's one of the #1 issues I'm seeing with you guys, is that you guys are making the head way too heavy, and so the wire can't support that weight, and it's likely to tip over or bend the wire. So using tinfoil as your base is going to make your head a lot lighter. It's also going to help your head and feet bake more evenly in the oven, just because again it's not going to be as thick and will bake a lot more evenly. It'll bake quicker, and it's just all around better if you use the tinfoil as your base. You will see me using sculpting tools. I've bought these from Hobby Lobby. I think it came with 4 different tools for around 15 bucks, but I'm sure you can find it way cheaper in other places, or you really don't even need them. Like for years I just used my fingers and a needle. That's how I got by, but the sculpting tools do make it easier and do make sculpting quicker. So if it's something you plan on doing as a hobby, or maybe take it into a career and you want to do a lot of things like this, definitely think about investing in some tools for yourself. Total disclaimer, I am not good at camera angles, and I am very aware that half the time my hand is covering all the things that you need to be seeing. I'm trying to learn still how to get those nice, smooth, wonderful, just nice angles, but I'm not there yet. And if any of you guys who record or just know anything about cameras and want to give me some tips, I'm totally down to hear it, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just sculpt for a living. Cameras aren't my forte. Help me. Once the head was nice and sculpted to my liking and baked and cooled, it was time to start the hands and feet. Now in this case, I wanted to use Instamorph, and what Instamorph is these little plastic pellets that you put in very hot water, and they'll melt and become moldable. Now the bonus of this stuff is that it is extremely durable, because when it cools, it's just a very hard plastic, and it just Oh, I love this stuff. I don't have to wait as long as clay does. It's a lot stronger than clay, but it doesn't get as detailed, nearly as detailed as clay can. So it has its pros and its cons. But for things like claws and horns, it's just perfect for. So for this Wendigo, I used it for the claws and I used it for his feet. For the hands you see right now, all I did was make a loop of wire and then put little thin strips of wire around it to act as the fingers, and then I just attached the Instamorph to that. Now, I may or may not have lost the horn footage, you know, the best part of this whole damn thing. I might have lost it, but it's pretty much the same process as you can see with the claws and the feet, so sorry about that, my bad. Once all the Instamorph is cooled, all the clay is cooled, all that fun stuff, then it's time to build up the body. I use quilt batting for this step, and as you can see, it comes in these long sheets that I have just cut into strips, and then I wrap it around the wire over and over and over again until the body's built up to how I want. I always build it up just a little bit less than I actually want the body to be, because I know the fur that I'm going to use is going to add a bit of girth to it. It's going to make it a little bit thicker. So you always want to make sure that you're not adding quite as much quilt batting as you actually need, just because, again, the fur is going to add a little bit. And for this particular creature, I really wanted him to be lanky, so I didn't use a lot of quilt batting at all. He was just going to be a really lanky, thin, emaciated looking creature. So you could really play around with it how you want. You know, if you really want a really thick body, really muscular body, you want to add more quilt batting. You know, you really want a thin body, you add just a little bit, just enough to cover the wires. Sometimes you need it just that thin. But play around with it and you'll figure out what you do and what you don't like. Once that's all done, it's time to cut out the patterns, and I say that very loosely as always because I just have a very go for it type method. But what I do is I cut a piece of fabric the entire length of the doll and make sure it's wide enough that it'll wrap around the entire doll, and then what I'll do is I'll cut slits where the arms and legs are, and I'll slide those arms and legs right through them, and then I'll just trim it down so it's nice and snug around the body, and then sew straight down the middle. It's it doesn't make much sense when you say it out loud, but when you watch like the footage with it, it like makes a little bit more sense. But it's a lot easier for me than making a pattern, just because I've never been good at that, and it's just a lot quicker for me. So this is what I do. I mean, there's like millions of ways you can learn how to do this, but this is my quote unquote go for it method. For the limbs, I do the same thing. I cut a piece of fabric the entire length of the leg or hand, and then I sew starting from the feet or hands and then moving my way up towards the body. And to join the two fabrics together, I use a ladder stitch. Once all sewn, I like to trim up and shape the body a little bit more, and for this I usually use a pet shaver. For this particular piece, I usually use guards when I'm trimming my fur, just so I can get different lengths and stuff of how I want it trimmed out. But for this one, I just took that all off and just went for it with the straight up razor, because again, I didn't want this to be neat. I wanted this to be messy. I wanted him to look disheveled and just, you know, unkept. So and also this fur was like really dense, and so it makes it very hard for the shaver to even get through. So sometimes when you have fur that's like this thick and this dense, sometimes you just have to go in it with scissors, and sometimes I did that as well. Usually I like to go in with scissors regardless, just to make sure like all the leg joints are very prominent, you know, the elbows are prominent in this case and stuff. And so, you know, you really want to take your time with this, because you can always take away, but you can't really give back in the situation. So you always want to make sure you're taking your time, taking it nice and slow, and then, you know, shape the body how you want it. I usually like lanky bodies, so I really like thin legs, and I usually like the fluff on the bottom of the hands and feet and things like that, but you'll find what you like. I did want to do some airbrush details just to make sure that the black fur blended in better with the light tan-ish fur, and then I wanted to give him like accents and stuff. I used an airbrush for this. I used a dual action siphon feed airbrush with an air compressor. presser. There you go. And it's just a fancy words for saying that it's an airbrush that has a jar on the bottom that you plug in, and it sucks up the paint through there. As long as you're being really light with your layers and you're not overly spraying the fur and you're not being heavy with it, it does not really change the fur texture as much, especially once you brush it all out. As long as you're being very careful with it, the fur is not going to change too much at all. It's when you start layering tons and tons and tons of things on top of it that is starting to just change the texture. When it came to painting the skull head, I started out with a bone base color, which was just white and a very, very tiny smidgen of brown. And I did, I think, about 2 to 3 coats of this to make it nice and opaque. And then to bring out all the details, I took very watered down brown paint and I painted it all over and let it run in through all the details and stuff, and then you wipe it off. I've always wanted to try this technique. I don't know why I've never tried this technique, but oh my god, it looks so great for how easy it is to pull off. And then, you know, say it adds a little bit too much color, then you can go back with highlights and add a little bit of highlights, which I did do. Like, I went back in with the really light bone color and added a few highlights where I wanted it to be a little bit more brighter. But it really sunk into where all those details that we sculpted, it's a very quick and easy and awesome way, and I can't stop talking about it because I just did it for the first time and I'm stupid that I've never done it before, so now I'm just telling the world this technique is amazing, please do it. I also did it for the horns as well. I did a brown color and then I did a black color over it and wiped it away just so it seeped into all the crevices and stuff that we made, and it just I love this stuff so much. Man, I talked a lot through this video, but if you stuck around at all and got to the end, thank you very much for watching. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you don't know that I have an Instagram, you're missing out on a whole lot. I do post a lot more than I do on YouTube, creatures that I haven't filmed, so you're missing things like this, and this, and this. So if you'd like to see more of what I do, make sure to check out my Instagram. You know, I'm on DeviantArt, I'm on Patreon. I'll just list all the things for you. But thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. I just sound like Jazza because I was watching him.